Okay guys, let's have a vote. Which do we think is worse? Rings of Power being an accurate adaptation of Lord of the Rings history, or Game of Thrones Season 8 being a true representation of how George R.R. Martin wanted A Song of Ice and Fire to end? Now, I've not seen Game of Thrones and I actually like Rings of Power. So I am not best placed to take part in this vote. I will leave the debate up to you. I'm staying out of it. Now, a lot of you are treating me as though I'm the one who created Rings of Power. Y'all do realise that I didn't, right? I know that some of the writing sounds like it could have been written by me, but there is a full-on war going on in the comments of my previous reviews for Rings of Power, all because I've said some positive things about the show. Guys, I just want to be Switzerland. I am just a casual fan. I can recognise its flaws, and there are many, but I can also appreciate its positives. Today we are reviewing Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Episode 6. We are nearing the end of Season 2, which I have to say has been significantly better than Season 1. And this episode in particular, I enjoyed. I found the previous episode boring. It was slow, it was drony, not a whole lot happened. This episode, I feel like they ramped it up a bit. I was hooked. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments, because even if we do not agree with each other, I love hearing what you think to Rings of Power. So let's keep this conversation going. Firstly, take a moment to close your eyes and listen to the music in the title sequence. That music is beautiful. And that is not just specific to Rings of Power, like the music in Lord of the Rings as a whole is just stunning. So episode 6 starts off with a very attractive scene of Arondir running through the forest. And I think that that is the only time we see Arondir in this entire episode. So he has like a 5-second shot and that is it. We are also greeted with the return of the orcs who look like me before I've had my morning coffee. I wish I were joking. How exactly does Arondir get snuck up on here? I don't really understand. Like, he is meant to be very intelligent, meant to be fueled with wisdom. How does he not realise that the orcs are creeping up on him? The cogs are turning and they're just not getting to anything. But a very important scene because good old Arondir does get access to a map, and this map serves some importance of which I cannot remember right now, but it definitely does. We are then introduced again to Celebrimbor, who we've noticed has been getting progressively more moody episode by episode. Now this guy needs to take a chill pill. He's snappy, he's irritable. This bro needs anger management. Mood swings all over the place, and he has a very ballsy apprentice who does tell him this. In a very relaxed and polite way, she does tell him that they've all noticed he's been a little bit on the snappy side. We have beautiful Sauron 2.0 who walks in with his luxurious hair. These hairstylists are 10 out of 10, top tier. The hair looks conditioned, it's shiny, it's smooth. I make some really insightful points in these reviews if you couldn't tell already. Very, very serious on this channel. Although, does anybody else miss the guy who played Halbrand? There was just something about him. I think he was a cool character. I mean, this guy is cool as well. This guy who plays Anatar, his acting, he is fierce. I think he plays the role really well. You've got to give credit to some of the actors, not all of them. But he in particular is a great one. So I think basically all of these different forms of Sauron, they've all been really strong characters. They've kind of carried the show a little bit. Sauron's plan is coming together nicely. He is gaslighting Celebrimbor. He is manipulating him. That is massively built on in this episode, as we see later on, when Sauron literally creates this entire vision of the land. It's basically like an illusion to Celebrimbor. He's kind of hallucinating that the land is peaceful and there's definitely not a war going on. Plot twist, there is. But Sauron is so powerful that he is literally manipulating what Celebrimbor sees, the way that he thinks, the way he behaves. And so for that, his plan is coming along nicely. He announces to everybody that he is now in charge of administration because Celebrimbor has gone a little bit doolally. That was a storyline in this episode that I particularly enjoyed. He's not even doing that much, but his plan just seems to be falling into place, which we do later see when the orcs start to attack. Sauron hasn't even actioned anything, but this is exactly what he wanted. He's a very smart dude. So then we move on to the orcs army, where we see Adar and Galadriel again, and the food that Adar is serving G looks banging. I was hungry at the time, I'm hungry now, so every time I think about the food I do salivate a little bit. It just looked great. The orcs know how to put on a good feast. And then Adar whips out Morgoth's crown, which is actually so badass. Just looking at it, it just looks evil. And I was wondering this, they might have talked about it in the episode and I probably overlooked it because I am dumb, but how exactly are Adar and Galadriel going to find Sauron when they still think that he's in Halbrand form? Like, they're not aware, are they, that he has now changed his form into Anatar? So if they're out there looking for Halbrand, how are they going to find Sauron? Is that the purpose of this plotline, that it's basically leading them to a dead end? Mind is blown. In this episode, the Numenor storyline actually progressed a little bit as well. I mentioned previously that I found that storyline to be boring and pointless. I take it back now, y'all. I actually found that there was some juicy stuff going on in Numenor. Now, I am just saying that anybody who has semi-vertical eyebrows cannot be trusted. Automatically looks evil. Now, I feel like they've made this guy look a little bit too evil, almost to like comical effect. You know, like when a real person just looks animated? He just looks too cartoon character vibes. He just looks too evil, but not in a cool way, almost like a kooky way. Do I make any sense at all when I film these videos? Probably not. We then get more men with more beautiful hair, and it has become clear that in Middle-earth, shoulder-length hair with a full-on beard is clearly the trend. We've got Tom Bombadil again. There's a lot of lore and a lot of history around this guy. He's very old, but he doesn't look it. Inspirational, to be honest. When he does the thing where he puts the wizard hat on, you're a wizard, Tommy. 10 points to Gryffindor if you know where that reference is from. And this is probably the last time we're going to see Tom Bombadil. I think his storyline has come to an end here. And he does say a goodbye to the stranger as well. There's that really cool scene where the stranger's talking to him and then the camera cuts to the side and then the camera cuts back and Tom Bombadil has disappeared. He's nowhere to be seen. Almost like he was a figment of the stranger's imagination. And I think the stranger is still really caught up on where Nori and Poppy are because, to be honest, they should be dead. I mean, he literally got them involved in a hurricane of his own making and whisked them away to their demise. The fact that they are still alive still doesn't really make sense to me. But it is the Rings of Power. Most things don't make sense, but I love it anyway. Speaking of Nori and Poppy, we do see the Harfoots again. Anybody who says that they hate these cutie patooties, please look into their eyes and tell them why. Bet you can't do it. And the best hair award goes to nobody. His name is Nobody, but not nobody has achieved the award because he has. This is getting very confusing. Why do they do this? Now, it is super sad that Nobody tells Poppy that the reason why he's called Nobody is basically because his parents forgot to give him a name and then it was too late and Nobody just stuck. That's really sad. Nobody is a somebody to me. Okay, let's talk about Poppy getting it on with Nobody. This is fantasy, not romantasy. I don't need to see Poppy, the adorable, childlike Harfoot, getting it on with a nobody. They are both really cute characters, but let's just leave it at the smooch. I don't need to see him getting it on. I don't need to see him getting down and dirty. Any more progression on that storyline is going to ruin this entire series for me. That's what it would take. It was a random time for a kiss, and this is also the weirdest relationship ever. Are they even compatible? Have they even talked to each other about love languages? This is all going to end in disaster. Also, if they complain that they're starving all the time, why are they not just eating the leaves and the flowers that are in their hair? You're using perfectly good food for hair accessories. I do feel like eventually the Harfoot storyline is going to lead to the creation of the Shire. Surely it has to. Otherwise, what is the point in them being mentioned at all? I feel like their storyline is feeling very far removed from anything else that's going on. Like all those main plots that are going on, I feel like the Harfoots are very far removed and very distant from that. That will probably change. They're not exactly side characters. I mean, the stranger is like one of the main characters of the series, right? So his storyline is definitely going to intertwine at some point. Or it's going to have a little bit more significance at some point. But this has been consistent throughout this whole series, is that I've just felt like we have all the plots that are going on in terms of the rings and Sauron, and then we have the stranger and the Harfoots who are basically doing nothing other than wandering across a desert and are getting searched by a cult of wizards. If that changes, I will happily welcome it and I will eat my words in this video. The next scene looks like a hair care commercial because we have the wind blowing through the stranger's luscious locks. Now, I'm calling it here. I will probably be wrong. I do not think that the stranger is Gandalf. When Tom Bombadil said that that was the last time that they were going to talk to each other, I'm pretty sure that Gandalf does speak to Tom Bombadil again at some point. Anybody who does know a lot more about the lore than me, please let me know whether or not that is correct, but I'm pretty sure that that is not the last time that Gandalf and Tom Bombadil would speak. So Sauron turns up at the Dwarven crib to try and get some more mithril. Now, I'm not going to talk about hair anymore because that's all I've spoken about in this video, so I'm not going to mention at all Prince Durin's amazing braided beard, even though it deserves all the attention. But the purpose of this scene is to show how greedy the king is starting to get because of the rings. We saw a little hint at his greediness in the previous episode when the king bitch slaps the prince. Oh no, he didn't. I have really been enjoying the Dwarven storyline. They're all really cool, really distinct characters as well. Now, I did say last week that Disa entered the Batcave, and it turns out I am right. I foreshadowed this, I saw it coming. Disa's scene turns into a DC movie because she fires a load of bats in a cave at a load of dwarves. I do really like this character, I just wish she would stop singing. It doesn't sound good, but she is a good character and she is more badass than I thought she would be, which I really like. I just can't be bothered with the singing. So this guy, Elendil, it's pretty obvious that he is not going to die because he is part of Lord of the Rings. Same with like Isildur, for example. You know, they do serve some purpose further down the line. However, I loved that scene where the queen essentially sacrifices herself for him, dips herself into the pool with the weird sea monster. My descriptions are not great, if you couldn't tell. It's when all the music in the background stops that you know stuff is going to go down. Why is the random stopping of music so tense? And when the sea monster spares her and literally spits her out of the sea again, I was rooting for her. If this was a Song of Ice and Fire, she would have been ripped into pieces, but it's not, so she lives. So I do take back what I said about Numenor being boring. It's not anymore. I really enjoyed the plot for that place in this episode. The evil guy clutches the ball and it hurts him. I wouldn't know that type of pain. We have to focus on the transition between Sauron's illusion of the peaceful world that he is presenting to Celebrimbor, when it transitions back into the chaos of the war that is taking place. Chills, literal chills. That was genius. The world's just falling apart around him and Celebrimbor's none the wiser. Man, I just really enjoyed this episode. Come at me. Now, if you are still watching this far into my review, firstly, thank you and why. I would just like to say I know that Rings of Power has its flaws. I know it's not great in the grand scheme of things. And if you are a passionate Lord of the Rings fan, which a lot of the fans are, understandably so, it's brilliant, this will not live up to anything you wanted it to be. The writing's a bit shoddy in places. There are cringe factors. It's been very slow paced. It's also been inaccurate in terms of the lore and the history. I completely understand why people hate this programme. However, I am not one of those people. I shall die on this hill. I have been bored in places, but I've not been angry at the show. I can sit back, watch it and enjoy it. And that is a privilege to be able to do so with this type of programme. That is my review for episode 6 of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. There are not that many episodes left to go. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this episode and of the show in particular. I know a lot of you will have negative things to say, but leave your comments nonetheless so that we can keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for watching this review, I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up to let me know that you did. And if you like my content and you want to see more from me, then please subscribe because it's free and it means that you can see my videos easier. I will be back again next week for another Rings of Power review for the next episode, and I'll post another video about something else in the meantime. Who knows what? Thank you for being here. I will see you next time, or rather you'll see me, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye for now. I'm just a cat. There is a fly. Oh my god, it's a mozzie. Stay away from me. Oh my goodness. Right. There is a fly in here that is getting all up in my grill and it's really annoying.